Hello, everyone. Hope you're having an amazing Monday and welcome to the Reality Bang. I'm RJ Johan, your host for the session, and thank you for tuning in. That said, if you guys want to contribute our topics, have any questions, or just want to tell us what an amazing job we're doing, you can reach out to us at 6364252164. So, for this edition of the Reality Bang, we have a very special topic to discuss self comparison. And of course, we have Joan here with us. It's great to have you back on the show.
Thank you, thank you. For a second, I thought you were going to say we have a special guest coming on the on the show.
No, no, no. We do this all the
And
time.
there are no more special guests.
Yeah. So let's jump right into it. So my very first question is now, how does constant exposure to, curated social media content,
Mm.
influence the Gen Z's perception of, or perception rather, of self-worth?
I think this whole thing of self-confidence, no, we have touched this in a lot of our other previous live sessions as well, here
Yeah.
and there. Somewhere or the other, I think we both have spoken about this, but I think we'll be talking more about this in detail. I think really, yeah, self-doubt. I don't think you can just particularly push it to just one generation or something. I don't think it is something you can't really say that self comparison is something our generation only went through or something. It is
Yeah.
something went through every generation, but definitely social media plays a much bigger impact on our end for our generation, simply because we grew up in the social media generation, right? And I
Yeah.
think when you're so much younger, I think it's you're a lot more vulnerable at that age, right? So
Mhm.
I think all those kind of when you at such a young age, like even for a teenager, someone who's like 17, 18, even for them when they open the Instagram, or even if someone opens the LinkedIn and sees the career growth of one person, or goes to the Instagram and sees whatever skill that they're doing, they're good at it, when we ourselves are doing that exact same skill, but we feel like we are not reached on to that same level as they are. I think the fact that social media has opened that sort of a wider network where it's not just one, but it's so many people who are good at what they do. You're immediately like aware of how competitive things are and everything, right?
Yeah.
So because you're aware of all of that, you really start doubting your own skills at that point. And I also feel like uh, but one of the things about this whole self comparison is there's one part where I feel like when we keep it to just when we keep this self comparison mindset just with ourselves, right? I think it somewhat rots our brain in that way, where we don't have that outside the we don't have a different perspective where we're not able to understand that we're not as bad as we think we are, but
Mhm.
we are comparing our entire life, right? Comparing to that person. That person
Yeah.
is just putting that the 5% great good time that's happening in their life, and we are comparing that 5% of that person's life to our entire life completely. And
Yeah.
but the reality is that person's life is no different from your life. They also have their own struggles. They themselves are probably having these sort of self doubts that you yourself are having. And then that's what it's called the highlight effect reel, which is something I found out very recently. I didn't know much about it earlier, but
Mhm.
it basically means that it's someone putting out the highlight, the best things that's happening in their lives. They put it out on social media, and other people see it and they're amazed by it, and we ourselves start comparing. And I think lockdown played a big role in that, because
Oh, yeah.
lockdown is the especially the first phase of COVID, where people just started putting out one content after the other. And for me personally, when I saw so many people doing such good things, it really I really started doubting my own skills initially at that time. I think I still do at some point, but in lockdown it was far more, because one, you're isolated and you're all by yourself, and you're one of your scrolling through Instagram is like a big time pass for you. And at that time, where your usage of phone is a lot higher, during the lockdown, and you're seeing people putting out such good things, I think the lockdown in that way did take a huge toll, where we started like self comparing our own skills compared to another person.
Yeah, of course. So moving on now, of course, you spoke about this highlight reel and all. Like, we can take our own classmates for example. We
Mm,
see them like put like at the end of every month or at the start of a new month, they say like, okay, what all stuff happened in the previous month. So I
mm.
think this is what you call the highlight reel. Now, how does the effects of this highlight reel impact young people's mental health and confidence? Because like just saying, like if I look at some people and they have such amazing trips and all of that, and here I feel okay, I've not.
Right? And
Yeah.
they want to watch the entire thing. But then you have this other group of people who may not be interested in the sport as much as the other, a lot of other people, but they'll
Mhm.
definitely enjoy the highlights for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's the somewhat way you can even put it, into this whole comparison sort of a thing. Because honestly, if anyone puts out every single thing in their life out on social media, how interested do you think anyone would be? I don't think so.
Yeah.
And I don't think that person itself would be interested to put out their own personal personal, not personal, but every single thing that's happening in their life. We ourselves will think the same thing, right? We'll just put probably the best moments that's happening in our lives. There's no way we are going to, like, share 100% of everything that's happening in
Yeah.
our lives openly in social media, in public, in front of people, where people are seeing that. And that's a very dangerous thing to do. So obviously they're going to really put out, like, pretty much like what's happening, what's great that's happening in their life. So I
Mhm.
think people need to understand that part also, like why that person itself is just not putting out every single thing that's happening in their life. Because ask that question to yourself, will you be doing the exact same thing? No, you wouldn't.
No.
So I think that same thing falls for them as well. And because without realizing that, when when these people put out something that's they're so good at, and you compare your skills so much, comparing to this, it does. Because in the end of the day, it's not just something that's affecting you, it's not just questioning you, it's also it's going to affect your daily life, honestly, in a way. It's
Yeah.
going to affect you mentally. It's going to affect whatever work that you're putting in. And I think one of the things is that if you don't have that sort of a environment, or you're not in that sort of a space where you're surrounded by people who are who are honest with you, I think that's something that you need. It's not just someone pushing you and telling that you're good at what you do. There
Mhm.
needs to be genuine, sort of an honesty that people should also bring out in whatever that you're doing. If you're good at it or not good at it, they should be honest about it and tell it, so that you are living in that sort of an environment where you are getting, you feel like if they're telling something negative, it is going to be genuine. And I think surrounding yourself with that sort of a people who are genuinely interested to who are interested to push you, being somewhat like a drive force for you as well. I think that is very important in this whole self comparison, because in the end it's going to affect the work, it's going to affect the material, it's going to material of what any single thing that they're doing. And I remember one of my college seniors, I think I said this earlier, one of my college seniors said that the the fact that when you're in a band, if you're having a bad chemistry over there, it's not just going to affect your relationship with that person, it's also going to affect the material.
Yeah.
And it's going to affect the material. And I think that's such a great analogy, because here if you are not surrounded by the right if you're not surrounded in an environment where you feel like it's not genuine, like if they're just unnecessarily, like, just bashing on you, and
Mhm.
they're not really trying to help you focus and figure out what you're good at and what you're not good at, I think that also it ends up becoming very toxic, like that way. And I think that sort of having an honest group of people in your life, I think will help you in some way or the other, will much better, I would say. Because even apart from that also, like, apart from telling that they're like, the fact that other people are just putting the best parts of their life, and but their lives also are exactly like it's no different and it's better, and we can keep telling each and every of it. But I think still, despite having being aware of all this, that self comparison thing, I think it's very, I think it just naturally happens. You can't really stop that, right? When you're seeing someone being so good at it, I don't think you can just think of all of that at the moment when, when you're seeing what they're doing. I think it just naturally happens. So I don't think self comparison is something that, you can completely throw away. It's going to happen, despite, you trying to push it, fight it, it's going to happen. But, uh, in one way or the other, I don't think it's completely bad, because you're also able to see how competitive things are. And I know, I can say things like this, but it's hard to look at the bigger picture and try to, push yourself, to work hard and make it better. Because the when you're also putting that many hours of effort, and then around that same time of putting so many hours of effort, you're seeing another person who's just doing it at ease, I think it will just annoy that person, because they're putting this many hours of work and they're seeing another person just effortlessly doing it far better than them. But again, the bigger picture is hard to realize, because that person who's effortlessly doing spent so much hours,
Exactly.
at aiming that. But it's hard to look at all of that, at the moment when you're seeing someone being good at what they do. So I think, yeah, it's very hard to push, and it's hard to really say, what is, how to get out of it, how to think it's better. But I think it's the fact that, you comparing yourself to another person, I think it will push you down in some way or the other. But I think it's just a natural thing, you can't really help it.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, like we are part of, a generation that, is very driven to do something,
Mm,
that really wants to become something in life. And especially like seeing all these highlights, like seeing the good things that, people are, you know, enjoying in life. Many people, like, they think, okay, fine, they're only enjoying the good stuff. They don't see any bad stuff. So they also feel like, okay, they are getting good without facing the bad, but in reality, to get the good, you have to face the bad, right?
bad, yeah.
Exactly. So I'll move on to the next question now. In what ways do academic and career pressures, intensify the feeling of inadequacy for Gen Z specifically?
I think I feel like when it comes to academics, I feel like that's the starting point, don't you feel?
Yeah.
Because even before social media, I think the fact that, your friend is scoring higher than you, that itself is going to you put on a lot of, this, your self confidence is going to go away completely. So
Yeah.
I think, okay, let's say there is someone who scored, like, let's say the entire class has scored really bad, but the highest score is 37. Let's just put it that way, 37 out of 50, let's put it that way.
Okay.
That person has scored the highest mark in the class, 37 out of 50, but you go and tell it to your parents, I scored the highest, and you need to but do you think the parents, who are used to seeing their son score, 95% out of the whole time, so if that person ends up telling this, do you think the parent is going to be like, okay, fine? They're going to get angry. They're going to say, like, why you didn't push yourself, why you didn't work hard. Those questions will be coming one after the other. But still, with the moment that, the parents itself are pushing it, like, there's one part where the entire class is just thinking of that certain person, that person has scored the highest mark, but that person probably, and we are doubting ourselves, that we have scored, let's say someone has scored, let's say 25 or something, and when that person has scored 37, you are feeling, you're really like, that person has scored the highest marks, but obviously that person itself is upset that, they didn't get the marks that they were expecting, because for them, on average 37 is not something they themselves are used to scoring.
Hmm.
And I think, it's very, it's somewhat ironic, I feel, when it comes to self comparison, that each and every person compare themselves to everybody, and someone else in a weird way, you think someone else is better than you, and the weird part is someone else thinks that you're better than them. And it keeps, and I feel like sometimes it's like a circle that just keeps happening over and over. And I think the pressure that other people, sometimes, like, when parents put, and, honestly, even like relatives will put, where,
Hmm.
you have, they'll come and tell you have to score this much marks, you have to score that much marks, and they'll immediately compare you to, your friend, that friend is scoring this much mark, why can't you score this much mark?
Yeah.
That's some These are words that we have heard from childhood, no, like, we have heard all of these sentences, where
Yeah.
the elders are just pushing, comparing you to, to someone else. So I think it just starts from childhood, where you have the elder people who are comparing you there itself. That itself develops, some sort of a comparison, because even if you're scored, let's say someone has scored like 45 out of 50 or something, still, they have scored very good marks, but they'll end up, seeing who has scored the highest mark. And if
Yeah.
there is someone who scored higher marks than that person, they'll feel very upset. But
Mm.
in reality, you have scored 45 out of 50. That's good
Yeah.
marks. But you are
Exactly.
still going, and for someone who scored like 30 marks, they're going to feel jealous of you that you have scored 45. And you, on the other hand, are jealous that someone else scored the highest marks and you didn't. And,
Yeah.
it's just such a weird way that, it's hard for you to just analyze and realize you have done a good job, but still, the fact that you figured out there's someone who has done it better, and it's just going to put you down, or it's going to make you push yourself and work very hard. It can go either way, I think. No, it can either help you, or it can just completely put you down. That's the thing. So I feel like this whole comparison thing, when as a child you're being compared, academically, I think that it begins that way itself. For me, it happened throughout school. Luckily in college it didn't happen much. It was, fine for me. Then that comparison thing wasn't really much, because my course was very practical based, so it wasn't there. But still, we would see all my classmates, some of them who are very good at, drawing and designing and 3D, like they would put this stuff out on Instagram, and I would really feel jealous, because these people are so good at what they do, and and I'm over there sitting and sitting and analyzing my works, and I'm thinking I'm not good at it. But then some other person sees it and actually tells the work is good. But
Yeah.
then, although people are telling good things, it's still not going to be, satisfying for the person, because despite saying that, immediately their mind will come as the other person that they saw who did a better, they felt like they did the work better, they'll immediately go that way. So I think even if you have people who are more, who somewhat positively telling that you have done a good job, unfortunately, still, it doesn't help someone, even that positive sort of an feedback that you will get. The sad part is it actually does not help anyone. So
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. Like, it starts from school and college, and I feel like it somewhat ends up continuing, throughout. So I think the fact that from school itself, you're being compared to another, just a topper in the class. But in reality, you might have scored pretty good marks in your subjects as well, but it's hard for them looking at it that way.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of remember a short story. My bad. I kind of remember a short story that took place in PUC. So we had a elective thing between political science and computers, and I went
Mm,
in political science. So at that time, I maintained my record of being the first in all the exams and all. And there was this one girl who I don't know. She tried to compete with me like every single time she got, and when the exams came, and of course when we got our marks, I was still ahead of her. And even when like she struggled so much just to keep up with me, and even I think like she has literally lost like the part of having fun, because even during fests I can just like, if we look at her, she's just sitting there with a political science textbook and she's just reading through everything. And I was like, you really want to get ahead of a person, and you're willing to
mm,
let go of your fun time. Like, we barely had fests, and whenever we did, it was supposed to be like a good time to relax. Like, of course we never
mm,
attended the fest, we just used to louse around campus just for fun. But still, even in spite of that, I'm just sitting and seeing her studying and all of that, and then I go and ask her like, okay, what's the deal? Like, why are you still sitting and studying? Shouldn't you have your relaxation time? And
mm,
she's like, no, I still need to get ahead get ahead of you and all of that. And I was like, there's no point. It's at the end of the day, it's just a paper, it's just a marks. And she was going very good. Like, she was the second top in the class. Like, I used to be ahead by maybe 3, 4, 5 marks sometimes. Not it wasn't a big deal.
mm,
And she used to be very close to me at that point. And even at the end, like, I beat her by maybe 1 mark in the final exam, in the second period board exams. And I just sat there and I was thinking, like, she has just wasted her entire college time just studying this that one subject. Like, I've never seen her touch any other book other than that political science textbook. And she was the topper in her own class, but she just could not, compete with the political science aspect. And I was like, okay,
Mm,
like you're ahead by, and she is ahead by the lot by more than 10 points. Like, say if I score like maybe 42 out of 50, she scores like maybe 40 or 41, and everyone else are sitting at like a very early 30s, like 30,
mm.
31, 32. Nobody crossed like 35, like who wasn't just the two of us. And I was like,
But
that's
overall, was she the topper of the class though?
she was top of her class, but when it came to the elective thing, I was still the better one.
Mm. Yeah, but I
And
don't think. But the thing is, like, I don't think because I myself have seen people like that, right? Who want to prove, but I don't think it is to prove that they can score better than the other person. I think it's just for their own, self sort of okay, I don't know, satisfaction is the right word, but for it's like for something for themselves, it's to
Mhm,
prove themselves more than proving it to some another person. And in the end of the day, marks for because for them marks do matter, right? Because
mhm,
we because there are we have these sort of professions where marks don't matter. It's more practical based and the experience ends up mattering. But we can't deny the fact that in the end there are some professions where marks do matter. And
mhm,
and we can't that we can't sit and ignore that part, no. So because there are professions in the end of the day where the marks is considered and it is matters. And that's one of and there are some people who do not have the luxury of just getting into wherever they want. So they really work that hard to get the scholarship. They work that hard, so that they can get into the places where they want to, and they don't want that sort of a burden, that financial burden on their parents. So
yeah,
these things also do add up, why they push themselves over and over and over to do better. But in
mhm,
the end of the day, when there is someone else who's doing better, they may not have the sort of they may not have the sort of push that this person has. I think that also will get them very angry, because they are working so hard, and and they have all the valid reasons to work hard. But when there's someone else who's just ended up scoring better, I think it is just to it's somewhat like it's to prove themselves that that they can do it more than proving it to another person. I think that is one thing that I think it's just to prove themselves more than anything.
hmm. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
So I think nowadays a lot of generations, like, sorry, our generation mainly, like we have fallen to this thing called a comparison trap. So, uh,
Mm.
in your opinion, now, what practical steps can individuals take to build resilience or to avoid falling into this comparison trap?
I um I mean, I can't speak for another generation with the whole comparison thing. They might have different reasons of comparing, but for us, because we have social media, such a big thing that plays a big role in this comparison. One of the things that everyone will on online will say is stop using your phone lesser, which which is an easy thing to say, but a very hard thing to follow. I know people who have these some apps or something that after a certain time, or I think the phone goes on airplane mode or something like that.
Hmm.
So after a certain time they can't open any of the apps. They none of the social media apps will be working for them. It's an easy thing to say, but how much, I honestly don't know, because I've done that myself. Like as soon as when board exams comes, right? We
Hmm.
all A lot of people used to deactivate their Instagram accounts. I don't know if you remember that.
I didn't have Instagram. Like, I didn't even use a phone at that point of
Oh,
time.
oh, okay, okay. So I remember when I was in like 10th, 11th, 12th, right when board exam hall, that time was coming. A lot of people were deactivating their Instagram. I'm a victim of that myself. I also did that, and that is to avoid distractions and everything. And I honestly, I don't know why a lot of people say that. And for me, I feel like, why people villainize using social media so much, which that's one thing I do not understand. because of course, you seeing another person, and it's creating like your self confidence. It's affecting you in such a way that you are comparing your 100% of everything that's going on in your life to that person's 5% of what that person is going. But you have to realize social media is a dangerous place to put out everything that's happening in your life. I remember, there's this one trend also around now, right, where uh, I've seen like, I am 25 and I'm not ashamed of, will be the caption.
Oh
And
yeah,
then, yeah, and that's the caption. And the captions, they'll mention like all the difficult things that's happening in the life. And it's very, some of the things that they say, it's very sad, like, because there was this one girl who was like I think she was like an influencer or something, and she has like 50K followers. And it's her page looks like pretty, it's like a very entertaining page also, like what she puts out very interesting content. But she puts out this one reel where she's openly talking about how in her family, in her professional life, how it's very sad also to listen to it. But I went to the comment section, I saw not one person was have sharing their having showing their giving their condolences for her or cheering her up. They were just toxic, misogynistic, like sort of a comments that were put out for her. They literally had comments like, that she's trying to gain that you're trying to gain attention. So what, this is just a pretty girl who's trying to gain like say sentiment. And it's really, it's such horrible, sort of a comments that she has in her that she had in her Instagram comment section. And it was very painful to see. I think that's a good example of the fact that you put out like all these things that's happening in your life. When you see her account, where everything, it's a really good she has a great page. But then she's explaining what's happening in her personal life. If that reel wasn't there, not one person would have known how difficult her life actually is. When the moment she puts out the difficulties that she's facing in her life, and look at what's happened. And social media is that dangerous place where you have some of the people. It's very crazy that you look at that person's Instagram account, the person who's put that very very mean comment. You go click that person's Instagram, they'll put all these sort of motivating sort of things, and then you see what they put on the Instagram comments. It's like such horrible things that they put out, which I never, which is a weird thing to understand. So, you need to realize, that 5% of good things that's happening in their life, and they're putting out, the moment they put out, everything in their life, it's not something everyone will just appreciate and be sensitive about it and show their sort of a condolences. It's a very dangerous place. So you need to understand that although they're putting 5% of their lives, it's not the safest thing to do. So that's why they're just putting out just one certain part of the certain part of their life, that they're sharing it to the public. And you shouldn't compare that 5% of your life to every single thing that's happening in your life. Like, it's like the best moment in that person's life, they'll immediately compare that to the worst thing that's
yeah.
happening in their life. And and that is the problem, that you are comparing it so low. And it's a very sad, it's a very sad thing to get out of it. But I think it's easy to say, just to all these things, that their lives are also not the best and everything, it's all butterflies. But I think you need to realize that everyone have their own struggles. But the fact that they're not putting it out on social media, it's a fair reason, and you need to appreciate them, that that they boldly still putting out stuff like that. And I think it's the environment that you're surrounded by as well. I think if you're open and honest enough, you have friends like that who honestly tell things to you in the right way, and you have built it that sort of a community, within your around your surrounding yourself, where you're getting the feedback. You feel like, even if it's a negative sort of a feedback they're giving, if you feel like the feedback is genuine instead of putting you down, I think that's a great thing, that you have people like that who are honestly willing to push you and make you better at what you do. And I think when you have that sort of a balance, where you're able to understand what you're good at and bad at as well, I think it's a great thing because we'll see another person who's very good at what they do, but you go and ask that person, they'll tell you that let's say an artist itself, you go and look at their artwork and it's amazing out there. You go and ask that person, that they'll say that that was a horrible experience working on this work because they spent hours and hours and hours and hours on it. And at one point the tension raised so much for that artist that they were like, they just wanted to get over with it because it took them so many hours of it. And the number of creative blocks that they get, the amount of frustration it might one work might put for them. But they're not telling all of that, right? Not everyone will tell the struggle that goes behind one work. They're showing you, and which you yourself know. Well, like, you put your work out and people might compliment you, but you know how much work went into it, and you know how much it struggles was there behind that itself. But nobody's telling that. So I think it's easy to say, but it's important to at least let people know to look at the bigger picture and realize, it's not all amazing, outside. It's difficult for everyone in every
Yeah,
single way.
exactly. And with that said, that officially brings us to the end of today's show. A huge thank you to Johan for joining
Yeah.
today's show.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
so
having me,
much.
bro.
And remember, guys, we air on Mondays at 4:30 p.m. That said, if you guys want to contribute our topics, have any questions, or just want to tell us what an amazing job we're doing, you can reach out to us at 6364252164. And a huge thank you to our listeners for tuning in to this edition of the Reality Bang, your weekly dose of youth power, brought to you by FEBA Online. This is Ajay Johan. Hope you have an amazing week, and I'll see you next Monday. God bless you.